Hello everybody, it is Obscure Nick here today with a new video, and today we will be discussing Rolling Stone's Bill Wyman's inappropriate relationship with former child pop star Mandy Smith. So let's deep dive and thrive. So Bill Wyman, for most that know, he was a bassist for one of the most known rock and roll bands of all time, the Rolling Stones. He was a part of the band from 1962 to 1993 for 31 years, which is a long time in the music industry. That's amazing, and especially in that time period. Bill Wyman was born on October 24th, 1936 in London, England. He grew up in poverty and where he spent most of his early life living in rough streets of Penge, southeast London. Wyman described his childhood as scarce by poverty. His original name was William George Perks Jr. and then he changed it to Perks Wyman in August 1964. Have you guys ever noticed that people named like William and stuff and Henry usually tend to not like their names because it's like so old-fashioned and everything, and they tend to change it usually. I've noticed that with a few people. I know a few people who are like that. In earlier years, he did jobs such as the Air Force, as a fighter pilot, and as a bookmaker. However, Mandy Smith, an English former pop star model who was 13 in 1984, she released only one studio album in 1988 with Saw and released songs like I Can't Wait and Boys and Girls, which are very 80s pop type songs. Saw was the record label for people like Kylie Minogue Locomotion, Bananarama, Jason Donovan. You know, they have a lot of 80s and early 90s gems within that label itself. So they were like the pop factory for, I guess, like synth pop type of music. And yeah, their work is very of that realm, and that their sound was very popular in that time period, the late 80s, early mid to late 80s, I would say. Bill Wyman met Mandy Smith when she attended the BPI Awards with her older sister Nicola in 1984 when she was 13 years old. Now, a bit of background on Mandy Smith. She grew up with more family than friends. She didn't really have any friends, so family to her was everything. She was a traditionalist in that sense, and she didn't have her father around, and he wasn't a role model to her at all. And her mother, when she was young, was sick and ill, especially around this time. So she had to become kind of like the adult and did all the cleaning and cooking and stuff, and nobody was there to like lay down the law and say, you know, the parents, the adults are supposed to do this job. You're just a kid, so just stay as a kid.
Places how your sister commented how you always appeared much older than you looked. Yeah. So obviously you took on the responsibility of almost like mothering.
Yeah. I think I liked it because I think when you're younger, you know, young people always want to be older or have some, you know, they just can't wait to grow up.
Yes.
So I think my opportunity came there.
And she loved to appear much older than she looked because she liked doing all the housework. She had no issue doing that at all. Like, she genuinely loved it. And she loved being girly and dressing up very fancy-like and all that sort of stuff. So that's a bit of how Mandy Smith was at a very young age. She's one of those kids that were more mature for her age than expected, I guess, because of the circumstances of her family's issues in general. But here's the full story of how she met Bill Wyman at the music awards. At age 13, Mandy Smith went to a club with her cousin and was given tickets to the award show, which her mom allowed her to go with as long as there was family with her in London. Her mom didn't know that she would meet Bill Wyman. She just thought, oh, she's with family, so it's okay. And she met Bill Wyman at that award show, and they began talking, and he began going to lunch with them and everything, with Mandy Smith's family and Mandy Smith, and he became kind of like this father figure to Mandy. And they began a secret relationship. However, That relationship only became public 2.5 years later when she reached 16, which in the UK, that's the legal age of consent during this time period specifically. And to take it a step even further, according to Mandy, they had a sexual relationship at age 14. And I'm just like, oh my god, like, that's insane. And to me, that's a no. That's like, you can be arrested for that sort of thing. So like, to me, that already just screams grooming, and you're clear. What in the world could you have in common with a 13, 14-year-old to go that far with it? Like, and he was like 50 at this time. Like, he was 50. He wasn't even like 30 or something, or 20. He was 50. So when there's 50 to 14, that's quite an age gap. So to me, this screams grooming to no end, and there's no excuse for this. And to bring it out even further, in Bill Wyman's 1990 autobiography, he wrote, and this is him trying to excuse this behavior. He wrote, "She took my breath away. She was a woman at 13. And I'm like, that is not an excuse. It's still a 13-year-old. Like, they have not fully mentally developed. And you are taking advantage of her, and that's very clear. And just because someone seems mature for their age doesn't mean they're mature. And I don't think any 50-year-old man would hang around a 13-year-old girl just to hang out. I think there was another agenda. And I know there was another agenda, because it's very clear here that there was another agenda. And on June 2nd, 1989, age 52, Bill Wyman married 18-year-old Mandy Smith, whom he had fallen in love with when she was 13, to which she thought marriage was a part of life, and that's why she did it. So she pretty much just conformed to it because she thought marriage was a part of life. And like I said before, she was very adult figure at a young age in the family home, because she had to take care of her parents, and she liked doing all the house chores and everything like that. So she thought the next step was marriage, and Bill Wyman was leading it to there. And, you know, this is just a really sick, like, story in general. Like, who actually goes through with all that? Smith moved out just weeks after they married, and it ended in divorce after 23 months. And Smith won a settlement that was reported close to $1 million. The couple separated 2 years later and finalized their divorce after that. They didn't stay friends, because as soon as they divorced, Bill Wyman didn't want anything to do with Mandy Smith. Like, he literally just left her in the ditch. Like, especially with what he did, it just shows he just used her and just let her go. Like, as if it was, like, some sort of, like, hookup or something to me. Like, a long-term hookup relationship. And once that was no longer given, you know, something that's very key to me that is very interesting that Mandy mentions in this interview. Here's the clip.
I don't think I ever went into marriage thinking, why am I doing this?
No.
I did it because I felt it was the right thing to do. I have a whole different thinking now about marriage. And looking back, I can see what the wrongs were of the marriage, and going into it for whatever reasons of thinking it was love or whatever.
Yes.
It wasn't right.
No.
But we do these things.
After that, was it amicable?
No, it wasn't, because I think, you know, living in the media glare, for one, it wasn't good. But two, my health at that time really took a downturn. My health had always been quite fragile through the years. But I think with the pressure of life, and even the pressure of being married to him as a person, because I think I knew what we had between us and the history and expectations of how I should have been, and I just think I wasn't feeling the support that I should have got, because I wasn't the person anymore that he had married.
Yes. And you felt quite weak
physically, mentally, emotionally.
Did you know what it was?
But I think when I was ill, that was the real downtime to really look and think, what is going on here?
Yes.
And really, that's when I needed him most.
So in this clip, Mandy's health went downward. She said that because of the pressure of being married to him, and that he wasn't the same person he first married. And when she needed him most, she got sick, he wasn't there for her. And it's interesting, when she got sick and she can do and please him and be just happy with him, that's when the marriage was no good, and that's when things went south. And it's clear he was only using her in one sort of light, and that's not a real marriage, truthfully. Honestly, to take it a step further, Wyman's 30-year-old son from his first marriage, Stephen, married Smith's mother, Patty, who was age 46 then. And they split after 2 years, and that was in 1993. So there's a lot of weird connections with Mandy Smith and Bill Wyman's family, and I just can't. Like, I don't know how this was allowed. Like, God. After the divorce, Mandy's life became different, which in 1993 she married football player Pat Van Der Haa, and that was someone who is more of age, and I think, yes, that's a much better match, but that only lasted 2 years. And in 2001, she was engaged to Vanity Fair model Ian Mosby for a while, and they had a son named Max. These people were more of age, they were more reasonable instead of that first marriage. And in 2010, though, Smith came in with a different tone and came out publicly saying for the age of consent in the UK to be raised from 16 to 18. And she said this, "People will find that odd coming from me, but I think I do know what I'm talking about here. You are still a child even at 16. You can never get that part of your life back, your childhood back. I never could." And I think this shows a lot of growth. This shows a lot of true self-reflection and inner self-reflection with Mandy, because she didn't realize what she was doing. And she said that she wanted to grow up so fast that she realized that her childhood was only once a lifetime, and you have your entire lifetime to grow up and everything. And I think she realized her flaws, but I don't think she regrets those mistakes, because everyone makes a mistake for a reason. But honestly, I do think she is truthfully a victim of being groomed. And in the past decade, Mandy has preferred to keep out of the public eye. She gives interviews here and there. She is living a life as a single parent. She works currently for a PR company, Kiss PR, with her sister Nicola, and that's what she does now. As for Bill Wyman, he's had his ups and downs. He got remarried and divorced, and he quit smoking in 2009, and he was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2016. And to take it even further, in 2019, there was a documentary which brought up this topic, released on his life, called The Quiet One, and it goes into details about his marriage and relationship with Mandy Smith. And he was wanting to attend a Q&A for this film so he could speak his words, but he was rejected from that Q&A because of the circumstances of what he has done, and they felt he was probably going to justify his actions, because truthfully, his actions are inexcusable. Like, you were grooming a minor, and you had sex with a minor at 14. Like, honestly, I'm surprised he's not in jail, because today he would be arrested. Like, really, like, what could you possibly justify this with? Like, you can't say you were so in love with this person, because clearly you weren't, because she is saying you didn't help her when she needed you most, when she was sick. So there wasn't really a love thing, and you guys were like moved out. Like, you guys were like not even the same place weeks after the marriage. So how can we say this was a real love relationship, really? Like, it's just grooming to the max, in my opinion. Like, I can't stand people who try to justify their actions of, I'm gonna say, pedophilia. I know that I may not have been in that relationship myself, but as an outsider looking into this, that's just what it is. That is what it is. You can't, a 50-year-old doesn't just fall in love with a 14-year-old. And a 14-year-old isn't mentally developed enough to understand why she would fall in love with a 50-year-old. And that's just what it is. And that's just natural human psychology. No 14-year-old is mature enough, in my opinion, to have sex with a 50-year-old. Like, I'm sorry, that's just my opinion on this. Bill Wyman is now 85 years old now, but people have turned around, and everything he did back then is taking a turn on him now, and he's definitely looked in a certain light differently. And I mean, grooming minors, there's no coming back for that. There's one thing if you, like, said something that was offensive, and you know, that's one thing. You can always come back from that sort of thing in some form. But grooming a minor, you belong in jail, personally. That is just my opinion on that. I'm happy, though, that Mandy Smith's life turned around for the better. And I do like her music. I'm a huge fan of song music. And she's a one-album wonder, and that's okay. And sometimes it's better if some artists just have one album and that's it. I think Mandy learned from her past mistakes and now can give those lessons out to the public and be like, this is where I'm at, and now I'll advocate for saying grooming is never acceptable. I want to know if anyone knows about this story from back then. Like, what was it like to the public? What did you feel about it if you were around in the late 80s when this relationship was public and the marriage? What did you think about it then, and what did the public generally think about it then? And I know that was more, I'm asking for a more European perspective. I don't know if this was really known in the US. I'm sure with the Rolling Stones thing, Bill Wyman was known in the US, but I don't think Mandy Smith was known there as much. But I want to know your guys' thoughts on that. And what does people now who are learning about the story think of this? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye!